You are watching Houseplant Masterclass and this is episode 3. Welcome to this session where we're going to talk about very important aspect normally really overlooked, that is how to shop healthy plants. What are the simple tips and tricks with which you can buy really good happy deals at nurseries, and then what to do with plants after you bring them home. So let's start. But before I do that, let me just remind you one thing. I've been observing that while a lot of people have been watching, still as you'll see, 77% of you are not subscribed to our channel. So if you love watching our videos, if you love what we are doing, please subscribe. It's a red button below. Hit subscribe and let's start with our episode. So buying of great plants starts before you leave home. Very important thing. While you are at home, it's important that you decide where you are going to keep plants. And here is a list of various topics we'll cover today. So we'll start with how we have to prepare before going to nursery. Then we are going to talk about what we observe when we are at the nursery. A small amount I'm going to talk about how plants get affected while they are at nursery and what we should look at. Which plants to choose, how to decide. Very important, very important. It has a lot of sub bullets. We will take them with examples. Then how to bring them home and what to do after bringing them home. So let's start this. Before you go to nursery, always prepare well in advance, understanding where you're going to keep your plant. Now, how is it going to help you? It is going to help you in deciding which kind of plant you need, right? Where are you going to keep it? So is it going to be in a place where they're going to get filtered sunlight? Is it going to be a shade, low light shade, medium light shade? If you remember what we studied in the first episode, right? The pen test, as I call it, you can put a pen to understand even in a shade, how much light is the plant getting. So once you know where you are going to keep your plants, you are able to pick better plants, both in terms of size and also in terms of light requirement. So always before leaving, just make a mental note of where you are going to keep your plants. That will go a long way. You can go a step further and make a list of these things so that you do not forget. What is very easy, and I go to nursery and it happens a lot of times, we get really carried away in what the nursery is offering and then we forget what we need. A list, a small preparation is going to go a very long way in this. Now after that, once you are at the nursery, what is it that you are going to observe? So let's see an image of a nursery, right? So typically this is going to be a standard structure that you're going to see at any nursery. In the front, most of the times in the front, you will see an empty space where there are a lot of plants which can get direct sun. And then there is a green, there's an area under the green net. It's a shaded area. Now, what does the green net do? Green net provides filtered sunlight or it provides shade. There are different grades of this net, so it can range from blocking 30% to 40% of the sunlight. And it is under this green net that you will find plants which you can keep inside your home. If you have a plant from outside this green net, it doesn't matter how much the nursery person says that this is perfect to keep inside your home, it is not going to survive. If it was good enough to keep in shade, he would have been keeping it in shade himself. So always remember this. When you're going to pick plants which you're going to keep inside your home, always pick plants from this shaded area. And even within this shaded area, walk a bit deeper, because that is where the shade continues to increase, because initially just at the start of the shaded area, it is still able to get some light direct from the edge. But once you go inside, it is getting all shaded light. Very important. Always observe this structure and it will help you select plants which are going to survive. Now what happens when you bring a plant from outside the shaded area and bring it to a shaded area? It's a huge shock for the plant. Plant was surviving and thriving in this great sunlight, and now suddenly it is devoid of that light. So under no circumstances take a plant from outside and bring it to your home. Now why am I repeating this is because there might be some plants like say money plant which you can keep both in very bright light and in shaded light. But the this particular pot that you're going to bring home should be the one which in nursery was also growing in a shaded area. That is extremely important. So now I would like to just take a moment, and before we go into talking about which plants to pick, let's talk about what happens to plants, what is the journey of a plant, how it reaches you, and before that where all it has been. So the nurseries are really divided into many stages, and while there are some nurseries or there's some plantations that specialize in creating the new plants from cuttings, from seeds, then there are nurseries which are into wholesale and they supply to other nurseries. Now why it is important to understand is that there are only few cities in the country, and then within every city there are some areas which do maximum production of plants. This implies any plant that is reaching you has had to travel a large distance to be at that nursery. And if we see this photo of, this is a truck of plants which has just reached Delhi. The plants are under a huge stress as they travel. And when we are picking plants from nursery, what we need to ensure is, we are not that much concerned about damage, physical damage during transit. At the same time, we are going to look at signs that allow us to understand that the plant has acclimatized to this new city, to this new home, and it is going to be happy being here. So let's look at certain amount of tips on which plants to choose and on what basis. So number 1 point, let's talk about plants with branching. When you pick a plant, you might have various pots of the same plant available at your disposal. Now, it is extremely important that you ignore the leaves. Do not focus on leaves at all when buying plants. I'll give you an example. This is a plant that I had purchased from a nursery with this leaf, exactly this leaf. Okay, this is something I purchased from nursery, and it might appear that why would somebody buy an alocasia or a plant with one leaf, and that too when that leaf is so damaged. And today, after 2 weeks, I have a new growth here, right? So I have this new beautiful leaf coming up, and the reason is very simple. When you buy plants, absolutely do not focus on the leaves. Leaves are easy to regenerate. Leaves are easy to get damaged. What remains with the plant is the root system, the stems, the branching. So put Anglo-Nema this time. So we are going to first look at a plant with multiple saplings. So let's look at these two plants. These two plants are same pot, same plant. They are going to be priced absolutely same, but both of them are absolutely different. So let's look at this one. And okay, so here we see a single stem in a pot, right? There is a one single stem in this pot, and while it has some new growth, that's a great sign, and I will come back to this point. We always have to look at new growth, and I will come back to this point. But here's, let's look at another pot, the same plant. Now this one has multiple shoots going out. These are healthy, strong stems of the same plant, multiple of them coming out. Now this is amazing. This is amazing. What it means is, just look at this one. This one is a single stem on the right side, and on the left side I see multiple stems. So if I was to choose this plant over this pot over any other pot of the same variety, I'm going to get much healthier plant. Firstly, it is going to, even if a couple of them die, I'm still going to have a plant. Firstly, important, when you are a new plant parent, always think about what happens when things go south. So in this case, even if this plant is going to not have such a great life because I overwatered, because I've put it in sun, I have multiple chances. But second thing, if you are a bit of a seasoned gardener, you can actually take this plant and divide it to make multiple pots, and that is an amazing deal. So instead of buying one pot, what you're buying is multiple pots at the cost of one plant. So always look at how many stems does the plant have at the bottom itself. Now then there is another point, from where to pick up the pot. From where should you pick up a pot? So what happens when you go to a nursery? Do you see there is a large number of pots kept in front of you? So if we are going to look at Syngonium, there will be a large number of Syngoniums kept in front of you, right? Now let's look at this answer in comments. Which pot should you pick up? Should you pick up a pot from the middle? Should you pick up from edge? Where should you pick this plant up from? What happens if you're anything like me? I get really tempted by all the plants which are inside. You always feel that they are much more healthy. You feel that they have amazing growth. But then what happens when you pick it up? Can we play, Pallavi? Now here, there are these two plants. Which one of these do you think is from middle and which one of these do you think is from side? Replay. Okay, so now if you look at these two plants that I'm having, one of them has been taken from the middle of that area. Now what that has done is that the plant is able to grow only upwards because there is no light that it is getting from the sides, right? Now it becomes what we call as a leggy plant. It has to get to a certain height before it can really see light, and then the plant doesn't have a good overall growth. As you saw, it was going up and then it had all the foliage but not overall. But the other plant, it was picked up from a side and it had all around light. The corners are great, edges are great, middle in general, it is going to be very attractive. You're always going to be attractive towards the middle plant, but once you pick it up, you will never be happy. And I'll know that you'll keep switching. You'll pick it up and you'll be like, oh, it looked much better when I looked it from top. That's the thing. The plants in the middle, they only look great when you look at it from the top, but not otherwise. So that's an issue. So we have talked about two things. Firstly, multiple stems and multiple stems or multiple saplings in a pot. Secondly, pick up a pot from the edges so that you have an overall growth. And then now let's look at point number 3, which is look for new growth. Put new growth. So what we really need to look at is these plants which have new growth coming out of it. Now why am I not clubbing it with new stems or multiple stems? Is because this exactly is not a new stem, but it is just a new growth. And what new growth tells us is that the plant is really happy being in this new city. Now a lot of plants are coming to Delhi from Pune, and also to Bombay they are coming from Pune. Now the climate between say Pune and Bombay and Pune and Delhi is very different. But when we see new growth, we get an idea that the plant is happy in its new environment. The plant is liking this new setup and it is healthy and happy. This is very important, because a lot of the times you might get plants which you say I brought them home and they die, and you might feel that it is something you have done wrong, but it is not that. It is just that for their journey to be coming from another city to your city, though they are going to always be a certain portion of plants which are not going to adapt well. And this sign of new growth allows us to know that this plant is happy in the new environment. So thank you. This is the first quarter of this session. This is a small message, and we'll be back. We'll continue talking about how you can shop healthier plants, how you can know what plants you need to take, how to take them, and what to do after bringing the plants home. Soon after this message. Take care. Welcome back, and now let's talk about point number 4, and that is about branches are more important than leaves. Leaves do not matter. Leaves get damaged, leaves get repaired. Okay, I mean, by repaired, I mean you will get new leaves. What is most important is the stem structure. So let's look at this one. I have 2 lemon plants here. Now, which one would you buy if you were to buy? So these are 2 lemon plants, and essentially what we are looking here is the branching structure of the plant. So whenever you shop plants, always look at branching that is there. Branching takes time, and there's sometimes that you cannot induce branching later on in the later part of the life of the plant. If you see a plant which has multiple branches right from the bottom and then every other branch is also branching, that essentially means this is a mature plant. And why does it matter? Firstly, the more the number of branches, you're going to get more fruits, more flowers, whatever it is that you want from the plant, you will get more of it. Secondly, greater branching demonstrate that the plant is much more mature. It is a mature plant, and that means it's going to be more resilient. It's going to be resilient towards water shortage, towards heat, towards anything that can go wrong. This plant with multiple branching, it will it will survive better. So always look at plants with multiple branching. So there are 4 points we have talked about when picking the plants from nursery. I'll just recap very quickly. Firstly, look at multiple stems in a plant. In a pot, there should be multiple saplings or multiple plants coming out. Secondly, pick the plants from the edges. Do not go for the middle. In the middle, what you'll have is legginess. The plant would be growing vertically, but not an overall healthy bushy growth. And this one is more important for plants like money plants, syngoniums, the foliage plants. Then we looked at number 3, always look at new growth, signs of new growth in a plant, and that is what is going to allow you to shop healthy plants. That means the plant is happy here. And then point number 4. Point number 4 is when you're shopping plants like hibiscus, lemon, and even any other plant with kind of bark kind of a feel with a thick stem or a hard stem, always look for branching. If the branching is there, that basically means the plant is really mature and it is going to survive much more easily at your place. So those are some tips which are essential for picking plants in a nursery. And okay, so these are some tips, and then there's one more tip. It comes to roots. So till now we talked about everything that we see above the soil. Now let's look at below the soil. Am I audible? Okay, so if we look at the roots, Pallavi, can we put the roots? Okay, so look at this plant. Look at this plant with the roots hanging out from the bottom. Now, is this plant that we should buy, or we should prefer a plant which doesn't have roots coming out? This is an interesting question. This is a question that stumps people even if you are a bit experienced. So I remember initially when I used to go plant shopping, a lot of the times we would think, let's not buy this plant because it is root bound. What is root bound? Root bound basically means the plant is too big for the pot, right? Now, if the plant is too big for the pot, I think it's a great deal, because essentially you are getting a bigger sized pot or a bigger sized plant for the cost of a smaller pot. So always, I would say always look for plants or pots with roots coming out from the bottom or even from the top if they are visible. That basically allows you to shop plants which are actually supposedly be more expensive but are cheaper because you're buying it while it is still root bound. So these are the 5 points to know what to buy, and this would really help you when you are at nursery to choose the right pot. Now let's talk about something on how do you bring plants home. Now these are some very common sense things, but I just thought to make this video complete, let me just add these here. So first of all, one thing that I do is at all times in my car I have a certain kind of a, what do we call it? Bori. We call it a bori. We have a sack. We have a sack always present in our car. So anytime that we shop, we can just lay down something inside the car and keep it clean while we put our plants into it. The other thing that I really recommend, I highly recommend you this is, I always carry this kind of a box in my car, and this comes in very handy because one of the biggest issue that happens is carrying plants back from car to home. Now why is this so important? Because imagine you shop some plants late night. Now you are too tired when you come home. Now what do? You think I'll transfer the plants tomorrow morning inside the home, and that is just because it is going to be very troublesome, and your plants suffer in your car just because of this. And this is the only reason I also like to keep it. So typically I would keep a box like this, and now when I buy plants, like say if I buy, I'll start stacking them here. Now this way I can very easily transfer these plants from my car to my home, and it's a very easy and a convenient method, and this box is very easy to keep continuously in your car. And you might be shopping online, you might be getting these boxes. It's an easy way to procure them in a way. I mean, you're getting them already, but this tip has actually helped me a lot, especially when we are buying a lot of plants and you're buying plants in a non planned manner. This will also allow you to pack more plants inside the car. It makes it very compact. And one of the most important things while transferring or transporting your plants is they should not move a lot. If they move a lot while you drive, then they get damaged. They get even more damage. With this, basically the whole box becomes heavy. It becomes one piece, and they are not sliding around in the say boot of your car. So I can't emphasize enough on how much this has helped me to buy and transport plants. So these are two very important tips. Okay, so we have a small video on me transporting plants also. So this is basically how you can put your plants, and you see, while we are putting a lot of plants, we are still able to keep the leaves and all of them safe because we are using the boxes. So that's the important point here. Okay, now comes an important question, and I think that is, so what I talked about till now, generally that is not a question people have. It is just something that I wanted to share. But one of the questions people have is, should I repot the plant after buying it from nursery? What should I do after bringing plant home from nursery? That is a question that generally people have, right? And we'll answer that right after this short message. Welcome back. Plants undergo stress, and it is very important to understand that. Every time they are transported, every time there is a change in watering or light schedule, the plants feel the stress. And our whole endeavor, our whole goal is how can we minimize the stress for plants, and that is the only way we will have healthier and happier plants. And because of this, when people ask, should I repot the plant when I buy it? My answer would be, it's best no, if you don't. Plants are anyways going to have a stress of travel from nursery to home, then going into a very different light condition. And in general, especially if you're going to keep a plant inside your home, irrespective of whether you got the plant from under that net or not, your light condition at home might be much lesser than what it was expecting in the nursery. Now, it's best to give one shock at a time to the plant, and that's why we would not like to ideally have it be repotted. So if possible, if you can repot at home, do not get it repotted at the nursery. That is highly recommended, because the plant is already happy in whatever pot it is. Even if it is root bound, even if the roots were coming out from the bottom, the plant is happy. The plant is happy right now, it is surviving, and it can do that for another 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So there is no urgency to repot it, then please don't repot it. Then when you bring it home, so it's not repotted but you bring it home, where should you keep it? Very important, very important. And it's important because of two different reasons. Firstly, any plant coming from nursery, it can be a carrier of disease. Now, as we are very well versed with social distancing, that's the same thing we want to apply to plants. So don't keep your new plants near the existing plants. This new plant can be bringing in new pest. It can have ants, it can have snails, it can have whole lot of insects. Now, you don't want these insects coming onto your new plants, so always keep them separated, keep them away for at least 1 to 2 weeks, for at least an enough amount of time that you can observe if there are some insects in your new plants. I remember long back I had gotten these couple of plants from the roadside. I was driving on highway from Delhi to Jaipur, and I saw there's this plant which looks like sunflower, but it's not sunflower. It's an amazing plant, and I got it home and I planted it all over, and within say 10 days or so, almost all the plants in that balcony were getting eaten by insects. And that's when I realized two things. Firstly, don't pick random plants from random places, right? But secondly, don't bring your plants, the new plants, into an area where the insects from this new arrival can destroy the whole balcony garden you might have. So that's very important. There's another point. There's a point too, where to keep your new plants. Say you brought a plant for your dining table or for your living room or for your bedroom, let's say. Now when you bring the plant home, if possible, if you have a balcony area, if you have an area which gets brighter light, for at least week or 10 days, try to put it there. Just as I said, we are trying to minimize the stress that the plant has. It already had the stress of travel. Now, instead of also enforcing a stress of low light, we are going to keep it in a brighter light, and then once we see some new growth happening here, we'll move it indoors. So two things. Do not repot if possible. If you can repot yourself, and I think you can, and if not, we will do a session on how to repot. But repot it after the plant is happy at home. Secondly, when you bring the plant home, keep it separated from other plants and keep it in a well lit area. Very important. These two things are extremely important to note. Now, there's one more question, and that is that when do we know that we can now move the plants indoors? How do I know that it is time for this plant to be moved from this temporary high light area to wherever I want it to be? And the point is very simple. Always look for new growth. Observe your plants, especially when you bring in new plants, observe them very carefully, very closely over the weeks. And when you see a bud, when you see a new leaf, when you see a small bump on the stem indicating possible new growth, then that basically means the plant has adapted to this new environment. What this also means is, it is very normal and natural that when you bring plants, the existing leaves might shed, they might turn yellow, they might fall off. This, I think, confuses a lot of people, and you end up going into an overdrive of trying to save the plant, and in that overdrive we tend to complicate and harm the plant. Do not worry. Do not worry if couple of leaves are turning yellow, they are falling down, it doesn't matter. We are only going to be concerned about new growth. Can I see new growth happening? Is there a new leaf? If yes, then forget what's happening to the existing leaf. The plant had enough to deal with its life from coming from nursery to your place and then adjusting to light and watering schedule and whatnot. And the existing leaf cannot. But the new growth that will come, that will be adapted to your environment, and that will stay. What you should be more concerned is if there is a new growth happening in your house after you brought the plant home and then that is falling off prematurely. That's a sign of concern, probably. But not when we get a new plant and the existing growth is falling off. That doesn't matter that much. So, our goal is to minimize stress, and we are going to keep it out, we are going to separate it, we are not going to repot it. Now comes the question about watering. Watering is another aspect. We covered it in episode 1. If you have not seen that, go and check out. We talked about light and water in detail. But today I'm going to talk about specifically for watering for new plants that you bring home from nursery. Now, as we said, firstly check if the soil is dry or not. Secondly, right after you bring the plant home, maybe that night or next day morning, whenever, but just give it one thorough watering. That is important also because while you transport the plant, the soil shifts in the pot. And one very important role of watering is to settle the soil down, to fill the air gaps. Air gaps are not good for roots. Aeration is, so don't confuse. Aeration is, but air pockets or air gaps are not. So basically root cannot be like in between, the soil is here and soil is here and the root is here. That's not good. Now when you water, this will collapse down and it will hug the root back. So that is great. So we should water the plants thoroughly once we bring them back from nursery. This will allow to settle down any soil that has moved during the transport. But beyond that, just try to refrain from watering too much. And why is that? And when I say refrain from watering too much, I mean just cut back on normal watering that you would have done otherwise. Because this plant has just had a change in light condition. And as we discussed in episode 1, the light condition has a lot to do with how much water the plant needs. The same plant, it has a lot of correlation. So that is one of the reasons. Now I was seeing one of the questions that was here. And after this, we'll just open for questions. But one of the questions I was seeing here was, what is the best time to go to a nursery? So one point is, right now, after the lockdown is over, it's a great time to go to nursery in general. And I'll come to the specific time of the day. But right now, it is great time to go to a nursery simply because the plants are really healthy. They are being taken care of for 1.5-2 months without being sold. They're a great buy, and also by going to nursery right now, you're supporting the nurseries and people who have had their money stuck. As we see in the cycle of the transport of plants, almost all nurseries across India would have got their new supply right after Holi. So that is about 15th March, 10 to 15th March, 22nd March, the lockdown happened. So they could not really sell those plants, but they have grown now to become really beautiful plants. So if you're considering going to nursery right now, do go. It's an amazing time to go. In general, between say morning or evening, I would say I recommend going in morning. And the only reason is, once the plant comes home, it has some light to help it through the first couple of hours. When you bring a plant home in evening, basically the plant has been under stress, then it is not going to get any light for another 12 hours, 15 hours. So it doesn't have any of its inbuilt resources to say mitigate against the stress it has gone through. Having said that, I routinely bring plants home in evening. So if that is the only option you have, for me at many times that is the thing, yes, do that. It's not going to be harmful that bringing plant home. But if you're just generally going to have an academic discussion and say which is the best time to get plants home, it's going to be morning. So that's the thing. Let's take questions, and let's take questions right after this message, and I will recap. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, do subscribe. If you liked any of the tips that I shared today, do consider hitting the like button. You know why? Because we are very new to YouTube. We started with YouTube actually after lockdown. First I did 21 days of live sessions. They are up on YouTube. If you want to see, they're amazing. And when you hit like, when you subscribe, that tells YouTube algorithm that this is a content that is worth watching, and then it reaches more people. And I would love for more plant lovers to join us, and for us to share our knowledge and information with them. So after this short message, we'll have the recap and questions. Keep your questions coming and I'll answer them. Welcome back, and let's just recap. First of all, whenever buying plants, start planning at home. Start planning at home what you would like to buy. Then once you visit nursery, keep the structure of nursery in mind, and now that you know what you want to buy, you can buy according to your plan, whether you want to buy something for the outdoor balcony or you want to buy something for keeping indoors. When choosing plants, do not focus on leaves. I repeat, do not focus on leaves. Focus on new growth, focus on branches, focus on roots. These things are going to indicate a healthier and happier plant much more than the leaf damage, which can be just damage during the transit. Less movement is less damage to the plants. So I always like to carry my plants in this box. You can do the same. When transporting plants, make it a very compact structure within your car and transport them with confidence without moving them when you have this kind of a box or something. Keep plants outside. Once you bring them home, your goal is to really focus on reducing the stress for the plants. How can you reduce the stress? Do not repot them immediately. Keep them segregated from your existing plants in brighter light, and also for to prevent the spread of diseases. And thoroughly water them so that the soil settles down and there are no air gaps in the pot. So these are essentially 3-4 points that we discussed about today about plant shopping. And now we'll be taking questions. Okay, so Sahana says, if it is in plastic bag, can we repot immediately? If it is in plastic bag, you can. So there are two things. You can, I don't. Because if it could survive in nursery in plastic bag for, say, I don't know how much time, it can survive at my place also for another week or 2 weeks. If you are going to repot using a plant which is in plastic bag, just make sure that you tear away the bag or whatever is outside. Do not disturb the root ball. Okay. So as long as you're not disturbing the root ball at all, it is fine. You can do that. Nicole Moody says, how long do you estimate we give plants to adjust to the new environment of home? I would say about 10 days to 2 weeks. but always look for that new growth happening. Why I also say 10 days to 2 weeks is because I feel 1 week sometimes is a bit less, and since a lot of us do these things over weekends, then probably 2 weeks is an ideal time. Anything in between, it's just going to require a lot more care. Some plants can say adjust faster, especially say the plants which love bright sun, they are going to tend to adjust faster if you are also giving them bright sun. Plants which we keep in shade, those are the ones which have issue, because shade is such a relative thing. There's such a wide spectrum of shade, and the shade of nursery and shade of our home might be so far apart. So give 10 to 2 weeks, I would say. Shobha says, can we repot from old pot to new one when there are many plants in the same pot of same variety? Shobha, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, you can repot, but do not repot immediately. So as a principle, yes, if you have multiple plants of the same kind in a big pot, like I showed you the example, when you bring them home, you can repot, but just avoid repotting immediately. Padma asks, my Anglonema leaves getting yellow in tips, what indicates that? Yellowing in leaves is indication of stress. Now the stress can be because of multiple reasons. It can be due to water, both underwatering, overwatering. It can be due to sunburn and then not enough watering. And a lot of times underwatering can happen because the plant has too much roots. So the water is just seeping out from the gaps between the roots. There is not enough soil. So the yellowing or the yellow or browning of tips is a totally separate topic. I would try to take it up on the 5th session, or we would plan a session totally on this one as a discussion with somebody else, and we'll take it up. Pratik Dalal asks, while repotting, should we use the nursery soil in which the plant is, or should we remove the soil and use new one, because sometimes the soil is too hard or too sticky? This is a very interesting question, and we have to understand why the nursery soil is sticky or it is too hard. Essentially, for a lot of plants, when they are when they are transported from nursery, they are just held. Okay, so I have this one. Okay, so normally this would just be held like this and then moved from one place to another. Now it becomes important for nursery to have a soil which is sticky so that this can be held this way. Otherwise, transportation and managing so many plants is going to be very difficult for nursery. Now what we have to take as a judgment when we are looking at a particular plant is, does this plant enjoy sticky soil, or did the nursery choose a sticky soil for this purpose because of moving around and things like that? In general, for most of the plants, most of the house plants that you have, sticky soil will not help. It's almost clay at times, and then it is best to change the soil. But then I also notice there are certain plants especially which come with red soil, and this I'm speaking from being from north, because I know in say south, red soil might be a very native soil, but in north there are only specific plants which come in red soil, and they are in pots and they are fine. So here's the thing, the soils generally in these kind of bags, that might require changing, might, if it is too sticky. The soil generally in pots, that doesn't. So yeah. So Dipta asks, how to take care of ZZ plant? Low light, keep it away from direct sun, keep it water it less, and you're done. There's not much. Feed it well. These are the three things. Okay, please also share a session on basic gardening tools that one needs to have, as I'm new to gardening. Sai Lakshmi, we will be doing a session, I think it's the next session or next to next. I'll just announce, which is going to be on basic gardening terms. We'll also be talking about all the tools and generally, because I find one of the purpose of the houseplant masterclass is also just to get people to a level where then they can read and become aware of things. And I think hand tools and a lot of terminology that we read online, I just want to share that so that whenever you search again, whenever you read somewhere, you are able to understand what they're talking about. Ushma Shah says, which pot is better for plants? Plastic, rotomold, terracotta, cement. Okay. So, pots basically serve three purposes. One is decor, the other is aeration, and the third is essentially the water, maintaining the humidity or the water content in the soil. These are the three purposes that a pot serves. Let's remove the decor part. I think you are a better judge what you would like the decor to be look like. I mean, do you like of terracotta pot or cement pot? That's up to you. Now let's look at the aeration and the watering thing. Now the thing is, there are certain things that you can control and there are certain things which you cannot. And that might be different for all of us. It might be very different. For me, it becomes very difficult for me to make sure that I am watering my plants all the time, right? And that's why I love these plants, planters which are, what do you say, as nursery pots. If you see, they have a huge amount of holes at the bottom, and this ensures that the water drainage is always perfect. So anyone can be watering my plants, but the water drainage would be really good. Now, when we look at terracotta pots, and so the compromise with plastic pots is that while the drainage is excellent, the aeration is not that good. Now, how I can counter that is by taking a khurpi and just digging through my soil, tilling the soil, loosening the soil, and making sure that the aeration can happen that way. Then you can be on the other end and you can say, listen, I cannot do the aeration part, I cannot till my pot. And that's when you should go for terracotta pots. They're going to give a great aeration, but the drainage would not be that great because there is one hole and the single hole can get blocked over time. So that's basically the, say, pros and cons of different pots. Ceramic is in between. Ceramic is like a terracotta pot which doesn't even give you aeration, but it is still great. It is great the way it looks, and if that means people are able to put plants in places where they would not have put otherwise, then amazing. Rashmi Kannar, to repot, basically you can use coco peat. So I'll tell you one very interesting thing. I find a lot of time when people refer to coco peat, it's not actually coco peat. Coco peat basically means a combination of coco coir and peat moss. And what I'm seeing is loosely just coco coir is being referred to as coco peat at times. I just thought I'll throw that in here. Next time you buy coco peat, you should know that you should not be buying coco coir but buying coco peat. Now, the advantage with coco peat is that it's a sterile material, so it is going to not have any other say seeds or infections coming with it. But having said that, the coco peat will retain moisture, so you have to control your watering that way. And I don't know which mud it is. I mean, there's a wide range of mud. Essentially, when you're looking at any potting mix or any soil, what you should look at is how much drainage can it offer? Does it hold water or does it let it flow? What is the nutritional benefits that it has? Or if it doesn't have, that's great. And yeah, so just a disclaimer, we are working currently on a amazing potting mix. And one of my challenges when we started with creating the potting mix was, if so many people kill their plants with overwatering, can we create a potting mix which can at least reduce the risk of overwatering by, I don't know, 60, 70, 80%? And that's why I'm saying that potting mix are very misunderstood to just be there as something to hold on to your roots, but they serve a huge range of purpose. So yeah, let's have the question. Okay, so Pallavi asks, after repotting when we water, the soil sinks. Should we try and refill this sunken area or just leave it? That's a very good question. So first of all, why does the soil sink? Because you are not compressing the soil enough. When you put the soil, you are also trapping air inside. So after putting every layer of soil or after putting some soil, always try to press it down with your fingers. Just fingers, or sometimes I just use the back of my khurpi, and what it is doing is it is allowing us to compress the soil, not make it very hard, but at least reduce the amount of air in it. Then we put the plant, we continue to do this. Now if we don't do this, or even if sometimes we do this but we don't do it very well, when we water, the air escapes, the soil collapses. Now right then and there, don't touch the soil, but say next day or over time, yes, do fill it. Do fill that, because initially also you intended the soil to be level, you had something in mind. It's just that you had not put in enough soil, that's why the soil has sunken down, and we should fill it back. Rashi Gulati asks, hello Rashi, and when we do visit nursery, how do we know if the plants we pick will adjust in the weather of Delhi? Like nurseries are selling succulents now, but I have heard that we should not buy these in monsoon. Okay, so okay. So there are two aspects there. Firstly, if you're concerned about one variety, like let's say if we have this Anglonema plants available in nursery and we see a lot of them, then we should look at new growth, and then we know this particular variety has, this particular pot has acclimatized. Now imagine you look at a variety of plants, none of which has new growth, succulents for that matter. So I know a lot of plants are sold in nursery which are never going to last in home. Sadly, the only way to know that is, firstly, I think one of the great signs is talk to the nursery person and ask him when did he get these plants. And if he doesn't have any plants which are really old, I do one thing. I always go up straight to the nursery person and I ask him, from where did these come from? And I say it in a manner, like knowing manner, like, you know, when I see succulents, I'm like, Dehradun or Nainital. Or when I see any other plant, I'm like, Pune, Calcutta. And then they'll tell you, they'll be like, this came just a couple of days back, I just unloaded it. And never buy plants which just came. Never buy plants they bought for the first time. I have had nursery people tell me that, listen, this is a new plant, I've never had it before, I'm experimenting if it sells. And they're getting it from Shillong, they're getting it from Gangtok, and these are totally different climates. And I think the best bet is to talk to the nursery person, and don't talk to him in a manner that he feels that if I tell them, they really want to buy, but if I just tell them that this will survive, they'll buy this. Because sometimes I've seen people actually harassing almost nursery person. He's telling you jade will not do well indoors, but he asks, but I read online, but net pe aisa likha hai. Then the nursery person feels, okay, if you want to buy, go ahead, buy it, I don't care. But if you tell a nursery person in a manner that, listen, I want to buy 3 plants. Now, which 3 plants do you feel I should buy? Should this succulent be one of them? And he'll tell you that, listen, these are very popular, but these do not last. Most nursery people are very honest that way. They will give you right advice, especially because they believe that you can be a recurring customer and you are going to come back and tell them that, listen, succulents don't last. So yeah. Sahana asks, where can I buy your coffee mugs and t-shirts? I think the link is in the description, the merchandise link, and thank you so much if you like it. And on our website, lazygardener.in. Otherwise, there's a link in the description of this video. Ritika Bhandari asks, flowering plants that come in polythene need to be potted. Is that right? Because it can't survive in the polythene. Okay, so the idea is, yes, repot. But when? That's the point. It is not about whether we will repot or not, but it is about when. So say this Song of India. I think I've had this for, I don't know, now 3 weeks or so, or maybe 10 days, I don't remember. But I didn't bother to repot it because if it could survive in this in nursery, it can certainly survive like this at here. Now you see it is shedding a couple of leaves, and once I see some, okay, so I can already see some new growth happening here. Now I can repot it. So the same thing with any plant, whether it's a flowering plant or anything, just let it acclimatize to your place first. You will have time to repot it. But listen one thing, even when it is in polythene, you have to water it. Don't skip watering. I water this plant. So just because it is not in a pot, because the water will spill all over, don't run from watering. But if you must repot it, then a simple thing is, do not disturb the root ball. In polythene, take it out and put it in a pot. Do not disturb the root ball. That is the key. When to plant in garden after bringing? Do you mean into the ground? Now into the ground, the thing is, the plants are different, that the way they come. So generally the plants that you would like to put in ground, they would have a bigger root ball, and you can replant them without disturbing much. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you for coming and listen. I know this time we changed the topic, but we don't want to do it again. So here are topics for session 4 and session 5. Session 4 is going to happen on 28th June. We are going to talk about basic gardening terms, basic gardening tools, everything to do with understanding gardening from a beginner's perspective, right? All the terms, tools, what to do, trim actually we did, but everything else. Then the 5th session, which is going to be on 5th July. So the next session, the 5th session on 5th July at 5 p.m. Great. That is when we are going to talk about everything to do with propagation. Now, why propagation is taking time is because I wanted to cover 3 types of propagation. That is propagation in soil, propagation in water, and there's a propagation method known as air layering method. So we wanted to cover all 3, and propagation takes a bit of time, and I wanted to show some examples. So the 5th session of 5th July is going to be about propagation of all different kind of plants in different methods, which is soil, water, and air layering. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, do consider sharing it with your friends. Do consider subscribing. Do hit the like button. We are learning YouTube terms, and next week we'll join to learn gardening terms. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching, and take care.